Hello and welcome back to Shakesyear. We are working on Thomas of Woodstock, and we get to hear from Thomas again today in Act 3, Scene 2, which is a little bit of a recap of Act 3, Scene 1, except from the Plashy house perspective. So we are at Plashy, where Thomas is there and his uncles were there, and they were talking about how the fashion in the court has changed, and they've redone Westminster, and there's these huge banquets that cost a fortune, and they're like, how are they going to pay for that? And they're not sure until Cheney enters and tells them about the whole blank charter idea, which they are all mortified that this is happening. So they decide that they're all going to go to their respective homes to try to quell any potential uprisings, to talk about peace, to try to negotiate, to keep everybody calm, and hopefully prevent a massive mutiny because of this whole blank charter thing. So the uncles all leave to go do that, but then a servant shows up, or a courtier, a serving man, whatever, shows up and comes in. He's brought in by Woodstock's servant, and he says to Woodstock's servant, like, oh, go take care of my horse. And the Woodstock's servant is like, no, I have better things to do. So he leaves. But the serving man, courtier, messenger person doesn't get it that Thomas is the Duke of Gloucester because he's dressed so plainly. So he's like, you take care of my horse, walk my horse. I have to go find the Duke of Gloucester. And Thomas, of course, just plays along with it, and he's having fun. So as the courtier is saying, please just walk my horse. I'll be back in a couple of minutes. Thomas says, I make no doubt, sir. And then the courtier leaves. So Woodstock is there with the horse. Oh, strange metamorphosis. Is possible that this fellow that's all made of fashions should be an Englishman? No marvel if he know not me, being so brave and I so beggarly. Well, I shall earn money to enrich me now, and 'tis the first I earned, by the rood, this 40 year. Come on, sir, you have sweat hard about this haste, yet I think you know little of the business. Why so I say? You're a very indifferent beast. You'll follow any man that will lead you. Now truly, sir, you look but even leanly on it. You feed not in Westminster Hall a days, where so many sheep and oxen are devoured. I'm afraid they'll eat you shortly if you tarry amongst them. You're pricked more with the spur than the provender, I see that. I think your dwelling be at Hackney when you are at home, is not? You know not the Duke neither, no more than your master, and yet I think you have as much wit as he, in faith. Say a man should steal ye and feed ye fatter, could ye run away with him lustily? Ah, your silence argues a consent, I see. By the mass, here comes company. We had been both taken if we had, I see. So most of that is him talking to the horse. And it's kind of an interesting commentary that he talks to the horse as if he's a person, but also points out the differences between being a horse and being the person. He's like, you don't know any of this stuff that's going on, but you're probably smarter because you're going to go with whoever it is that's actually feeding you better. So it's just an interesting little insight into Thomas and how he views the world and treats people and treats the other creatures around him, sort of. He's not necessarily above this. He does joke about this is going to be the first money that he earns in his life, is the tip that he's going to get for walking this horse. But then he, just talks to the horse about life and the craziness that's happening in court. So when he finishes with this, Cheney and the courtier come back in, and Cheney's like, how did you miss the Duke? Like, he was right there. And the courtier's like, no, I just saw like this serving man. And Cheney's like, no, that's the Duke of Gloucester right there. And the courtier is terribly embarrassed by this. He's sort of bends over backwards. And Thomas is like, oh, just pay me for walking your horse and we're all good. And he's like, no, but I know that you're going to refuse that sort of payment. Thomas is like, no, actually pay me for walking your horse. So he does. And then Thomas gives that money to his serving man to take the horse and go feed it and take care of it and all of that. So then the courtier is like, well, I have a message for you from the king. And Thomas launches into sort of a prolonged mocking of the courtier for what it is that he's wearing all the latest fashions from court, and isn't that fancy, and all these sorts of things, to the point where Thomas is almost like, okay, you know, I'm done chatting with you. But the guy's like, no, I do have a message for you from the king. The king would like you to come to court. And Thomas is going to have some thoughts on that tomorrow. So I'll see you then. Mwah.